So seeing we've been here testing this morning, and thank you so much for all the help that you're giving the Cumbria Flood Resilient Showcase project. I really am greatly indebted to you. And thank you for hosting the testing this morning. You are one of the companies that actually sort of evolved over the years. We sort of both met early in 2000, and you've been evolving far more than others in the industry. And I'm interested to know that you're not just focusing on keeping the water out, but adaptation as well, and also all the different ways you can possibly keep water out. So I'm just wondering if you could talk me through this brochure which we've just stumbled across, that I'm really quite taken with. And you could tell me about the promise behind this. It sounds great.
Sure. Well, one of the reasons why we've been slightly different to the others is that when we first looked at making our own products, we invented a flood door. And one of the big aspects you've got to remember when you're protecting a house is you can only protect it up to a certain height, typically 600 millimeters, 900 if you've got, good wall construction, or if you've got
an older property.
An older property, that's right, and if it's been structurally designed. So when we designed a flood door, the problem is that you've got no natural overtopping. You haven't got a 600 millimeter high barrier. So part of our patent on the door was the fact that we had an overtopping device on it, which is great. It stops the house being built. But when you think about it from a marketing point of view, that's not a really good sound proposition. Is I can sell you a flood door that will actually let the water in at a certain stage. Doesn't become a very good sales proposition. So our belief was then, well, let's look at what we can do to solve that problem. So, okay, we can keep the water out for a certain amount of time and up to a certain height, and that's what most people want. But then when we have to let the water in, how can we make sure that we can recover that property as quickly and as cheaply as possible? So for quite a number of years now, we've been researching the market, looking for products that can achieve that, and we've discovered some along the way. But it became very apparent that it's all very good looking at products in isolation, but what we actually need to understand is how they all go together and how they fit together. And that's really what we're looking at now. At the latest trade show, the Flood Expo, we talked about our resilient design promise, and that's built around these pillars that you see here on the magazine here now. So it's part of our research project that we're doing with Oxford Brookes University. How do we understand each of the component parts of the house, the brick, the wood, the insulation? How do they react to water? Do they delaminate? Do they return to their normal shape? Can you reuse them? Understanding that with people, working with people like Delta Membranes, who have got a really good range of slurries and tanking materials, and understanding how they connect to the external devices that we're putting on. So for example, how does it connect to a flood barrier or a flood door? Getting that design intent correct and detailed for the builder to come along and install that. Making sure we've got well-trained people, so not just from a surveying point of view, but an installation point of view. So working with people like the PCA, which is our trade body.
That's a Property Care Association.
Property Care Association. We recently announced a relationship with MA Assist, which is a group of insurance-backed repairers that do a lot of post-flood and fire restoration work. So making sure we've got a good body of accredited installers, both for barriers and for the internal works of the building. And then obviously working with people like Aviva that we now partner with as their flood experts, to make sure that what we're putting into place is actually insurable, because at the end of the day that's what the homeowner and the insurance company are looking for.
And businesses, of course, who are at the moment struggling to get insurance.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I mean, a lot of attention is on the homeowner because that's the bigger volume, but certainly our business is we are a B2B company, and these measures predominantly designed for the residential market, but very, very transferable into that business community. So if we look inside the brochure, what we've got here is a completely holistic view of how you would go about recovering the inside of that property. So we know water's going to get inside here, so let's look at all the different parts. It's not just the external walls you've got to worry about, because of course your stud walls are typically made of very, very porous material. So do we look at upgrading those? Do we look at simple things like we've talked about in the past about putting the plasterboard on horizontally, so you've got a sacrificial solution? Or do we look at more expensive but more durable products like Simwall? And then looking at the floors, again, concrete floors are all very well, but you can't guarantee the structural integrity of them. You know, the smallest crack in a concrete floor is going to, right? So we look at something like here where we're talking about resin floors. But it's all the detail that's important about it, and that's really what today's been about, is how do we make sure that when we put all these products together that there's no gaps between them. So how do we fix a slurry to an insulation board to a manganese oxide board?
Can I stop you a minute? Slurry. Somebody might not know what... I don't know what slurry is.
Right,
so
yeah.
Can you...
So a slurry is just another name for a type of render that you would put onto a building.
Okay.
So typically cementitious, but in the old days we used to treat lime plaster as a slurry that would do the same thing, and it's able to withstand water penetration into the building. And but the thing is, there's a multitude of products out there, and it's about choosing the right one. And what we're not saying is we've got all the answers here. We've got a lot of products on here, but what we're saying is that we need to pick and choose the right products for the right situation.
And that work together.
Work together in harmony, no gaps, and we understand how they all fit together. And it's like the rules that we've got for understanding the outside of the house. You know, we need to know the flood type, the duration, the warning times, and the depths and things like that. We need to understand exactly the same things with inside the house. No point spending a lot of money on protecting the inside of a house if it's just a flash flood that you can solve with a door.
Yeah. So
we're not advocating doing this for everybody. This is really for the people that are going to suffer from high flood depths coming into a property, and let's get them out and back in as quick as possible.
I like that ethos very much, and also it's not just, we often get the impression that it's one size fits all, and one size does not fit all by any means.
No.
And I like the fact that you're willing to adapt to each individual property. So it sounds really promising. I notice you've got a kitchen there, flood resilient kitchen. Can you tell me, is that the same one as we're going to have in the house?
That picture isn't. So we talked to a number of people with products that can provide floodproof technologies. The particular one when we first looked at in the early days was what they call a water compatible board, and it's a plastic resin mixture, and it didn't allow water in. The trouble is, it's a little bit like the Model 40 production models. You could have any colour you like as long as it's white.
Ah, right, okay.
So we've been looking around the marketplace, and when BRE did their project up at Watford with the flood resilient terraced house up there, we discovered another company up there, a Finnish company whose name I can't pronounce. But we looked into some of their technology and we visited them, and that's the product that we're going to put in there, because it actually gives you what you're looking for, which is the flood resilience, but it doesn't take away from the style. And this is in people's homes,
I know.
so it's got to look nice as
normal
well.
as well, yes.
So that's quite an important part of what we're doing as well.
Incidentally, the homeowner wants white. So
well, there you go. How ironic.
Yeah. I notice you've got you've highlighted dragon board. Now we're going to be having that in the house as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about the components and what it does?
Yeah, dragon board is an interesting material. It's a manganese oxide material. Therefore, it's a bit like a granite type material. So therefore, it doesn't naturally absorb water. The take up on it is quite minimal. Therefore, the drying out period is very quick as well. So typically, it would naturally dry out inside of about 2 weeks. It's got some other interesting aspects to it, because you can, in some of the examples they've used, they've actually used it in carbon-free houses. So these what they call passive houses, and they can build to a sustainable code 6, which is another good advantage. It also is very, very fire tolerant as well, and it has a 2-hour fire safety factor in it as well, so some added bonuses as well.
Yeah,
but the fact is that you can use it on the inside or the outside of the house, means that we can actually look at some good treatments for these hard to treat, single-story concrete houses, and we can start to put the insulation and the plasterboard on the outside, so we don't always have to go inside as well. So what we're seeing here is us working on the inside of the property up in Cumbria, but we could equally put a lot of this equipment on the outside as well.
Can I ask you a bit about the insulation, because people are quite concerned about insulation, because obviously it gets wet, it has to be removed. What kind of insulation are you going to be using on the house in Cumbria?
Well, let's talk about the insulation we're not going to use first, actually,
right, okay.
Because a lot of houses, even in floodplains when they're built today, in the cavity they're actually filled with either wool or paper. Big no-no, because obviously as soon as it gets wet, ends up at the bottom of the cavity, doesn't provide any waterproofing or any heat insulation. So we're typically looking at a closed cell technology solution. The one we've chosen for this particular application is a board from Kingspan that we're looking at. But equally, if we were to put in some other solutions and we had a cavity, then we would look at maybe injecting some solutions in there. People like isothane do a really good two mixture model that comes in and again gives you that closed cell technology which doesn't absorb water and doesn't allow it to progress through the insulation material.
And you mentioned resin flooring. I suppose that's quite a pretty new concept to a home. Can you describe it a bit more as to what it would look like? Because I've seen pictures of it and it's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? It really is. It doesn't have to look like the floor of a car ferry, which is essentially what resin flooring is. And it's been used for a long time.
Unfortunately, our partners decided to play a joke on us. On the ones we're testing downstairs, they supplied us with blue.
They did, didn't they?
Which is probably ideal for your swimming pool,
but not for somebody's house.
Not for your home. So it does come in good, nice colours. You know, either clear or natural. But if you've got a nice polished concrete floor, then this would just give you that similar treatment over it, and it's very, very hard wearing. If you want to put rugs and tiles over the top of it, you can. But as a finished surface, it's very, very durable. And as you say, I wouldn't describe it as beautiful, but it's a nice finish.
I think I'll take you onto some websites and have a look at some really nice ones. Oh, I know we haven't got this in the house, but I'm very interested in this nanoshell wall waterproofing. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, it's an interesting concept, and it's one that we've been using for quite a number of years now on the stonework of properties to start to offer waterproofing to the marketplace. We found it because it's been brought into this country to offer self-cleaning glass. Every time it rains, the water will hit the glass and it actually becomes self-cleaning. It gets rid of all the bird droppings and the like on it. It does the same effect on walls, and once you've painted it on or sprayed it onto the outside of the wall, if you spray it with a hose, you'll find that it just drops off as well. It's not the be-all and end-all for the marketplace, and what we tell people is that it's there to slow the water down. One of the problems when you do just put a treatment onto a wall is you can only go down so far, down to the ground level or down to the soil level. So everything we see up to 600 mil we can paint with this stuff. The great thing about it is it's long lasting. If you're putting it onto stonework like Portland stone and things like that, very, very porous, and this will last for about 24 years before you have to go back to recoat it. So it's a good durable solution, but it's part of a solution.
I always look on flood risk management anyway as a jigsaw puzzle, and this is very much a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've just noticed one other thing, and that's the flusher. You often tell me about flusher, and you get very excited about flushers. Can you tell me a bit more about it?
Yeah, it's a great product. It's a very, very simple product. The technology actually goes back to the Roman times, and they used to call them tipping buckets in that way. But it's a way of flushing out the sewer system. One of the biggest problems that we have in sewer flooding in this country is we're all putting fat soils and greases down our sink. The commercial name for that is fog that sits in there. And what happens is it goes down, and much like poor old arteries when you're smoking, it starts to block the flow of fluid through there. 80% of sewer flooding is caused by putting stuff down the toilets and the sinks that we shouldn't be putting down there. The way the flusher works is very, very simple. It's a counterbalance gate that is closed all of the time until the water level gets to a certain height, overcomes the balance, and we then use that head of water to go down and flush the pipes out. Any pipe that's got fog in it, it will start to knock it off over time, probably over a week or two. And then because we're constantly changing the water level in that pipe, it can never come back. So it's a really, really effective maintenance solution. Why we can't persuade the water companies to use them, I really don't know. Actually.
No, I know. Keep trying.
Oh, we will.
We will get there in the end, yes. Now, is there anything I've not asked you that I ought to have asked you?
Well, on the same vein is the non-return valves. Obviously, you don't want the slurry to come back into your toilet. So any downstairs toilets or showers, you should fit a non-return valve on. We typically suggest that you have one with 2 vents in it, because again we're putting stuff down the toilets we're not supposed to. So just in case one of them has lodged open, you've always got the safeguard of having 2. and they can be locked into position as well if you want to doubly secure yourself as well. The only other product I'd like to point out is what we call sim wall, and this is a replacement for stud walling. So rather than having timber frame or metal frame with plasterboard either side of it and the insulation in the middle, it all comes as one. It's a mixture of cement and gypsum pressed into a wall that you literally just come along, plonk into place, and you've got yourself a nice wall built as well. It does soak up water to a degree, but the testing that we're going to be doing is to how much of a degree, and does it deform, or can it just be dried out and kept in place. And the whole point of all of this, Mary, is to stop the rip-outs that's going on at the moment.
Absolutely.
And make sure that we can just get people back inside their homes within a reasonable amount of time.
Well, that's people tell me, and I know from personal experience, that actually it's not the flood, it's the recovery.
Yeah.
And the recovery causes the biggest heartache. And if people can recover far more quickly, that's great in my book, it really is.
Well, one of the prize promises that we're going to have with our solution, once we've tested and proven everything, is we are going to guarantee that we'll get you back inside your house inside of 4 weeks.
There you are. He said it on camera. He said it on camera. Right. Thank you very much, John.
That was
Thank
good.
you.